All right, we're going to continue talking about some Santa Clara basketball with the voice of the Broncos, Anthony Passarelli. He was down in Florida for the tournament. How was your Thanksgiving? How was the weekend? And uh, yeah, just we'll just start there. Like, how was Thanksgiving for you?
Yeah, Thanksgiving was great. I mean, it's we love. You've talked to the other broadcasters. We love what we do. Sometimes that involves travel on the holidays. So Thanksgiving was great. I met up with the team in Florida from my family vacation with my wife and kids and mother and father, and got to Niceville, Florida, which is on the Panhandle, kind of in between Mobile and kind of Orlando, I guess. Generally, I'm probably going to be in trouble for that, but it was great. Thanksgiving was great. Met up with the team in time to get ready for the game. Beautiful weather. So yeah, Thanksgiving was great. I hope you had a good one too.
Yeah, a little bit of traveling here in the Bay Area, but overall, it worked. Like
Good,
everything worked out.
good.
And over I mean during this weekend I was watching both of these games for Santa Clara, watching that game against Oregon on Friday, watching the game against Ohio State on Saturday. And we'll start with Friday because this was one of the better wins we've seen Santa Clara, a non-conference win Santa Clara's had in a long time.
Yeah.
And this we got to see a lot of different things out of this team. Adama Alpha Ball really stepped up. We had a great game from Christoph Tilley. I was really impressed with Tyree Bryan in that one. Just kind of take me through your impressions of what we saw against Oregon.
Well, I mean, you hit on the kind of the highlights there. So as this non-conference schedule has gone on, I'm getting a chance to see more of this team. Um, am not with the team in the summer during the workouts. I maybe pop in for a couple here or there. And then I'm getting kind of to familiarize myself with these guys. So many new faces, 5 new starters, essentially, from last year's team. And you're right. Adama Alpha Ball, a couple years at Arizona, but I don't think he played 60 games in 2 years, maybe 50 games in 2 years. And just seeing him grow in non-conference and get confidence, something Herb Sendick and I talked about after the Oregon game. That and it being a team effort. So you mentioned Christoph Tilley having a good game as well. He's getting comfortable. He wasn't really a starter. Christoph wasn't until the end of last year, his true freshman year. So he's growing and playing well. You mentioned Tyree Bryan. There's a player that came in through the transfer portal, and he has looked fantastic. I mean, a really strong defender, a good outside shooter, and I don't know if you saw the inbound lob from Jalen Benjamin on social media, but that was getting some raised eyebrows, and he just gets up so high. If you haven't seen it, go look for it.
Oh,
Um,
I have seen it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
saw that one. I think I saw it live. Then I also was retweeting the
yeah, yeah.
highlight to that.
So, I mean, I'm just naming a few players, but guys like Jake Ensminger, who's a redshirt freshman, also from Germany, like Christoph Tilley, got in. I think he had his career best in points and rebounds. And so, I mean, I don't want to do it here, but I mean, you could go through almost the entire roster and talk about players contributing. And that's, I think, what's so special about this team early in the season is Herb Sendik's got one of the deeper teams I've seen him have, and it's one of the deeper teams I've seen at Santa Clara in the time I've been there here. So it's just real exciting right now. And sure, things didn't work out the way we wanted to at Ohio State, or way the team wanted to against Ohio State. We can talk about that a little bit. But yeah, that win against Oregon was pretty special. And anytime you beat a Pac-12 school for however long they're a Pac-12 school now with the clock ticking, it's pretty special as well because obviously they're West Coast conferences.
Right. And one of the things that I think is what I saw in that game, and then also what we saw against Stanford, was just there's a level of toughness and grittiness to this team that because it seemed like every time Oregon went on a run, they responded. Every time that Stanford went on a run, they responded. That this team knows how to bounce back. This team knows how to fight through some of the adversity they might see in game. What's been kind of your read on that? Because that's one aspect that feels like that this team it's almost kind of turning into a little bit of their identity at this stage.
Yeah, I think so, and I think a lot of that has to do with player experience. So when you go through the portal, you're able to bring in some graduates. Jalen Benjamin is one of them Francisco Cafaro, who came from Virginia, was a member of the national championship team a handful of years ago. He's a graduate in there, and at 7 feet, 240, 245. Being around these guys more on these road trips, get a chance to see Tyree Bryan has experience in another conference, like we talked about. They're confident in their ability, and don't panic. And I'm not saying other players on the team are panicking at all, but they feed off of the confidence of these veterans, knowing that everything's going to be okay. So, like you mentioned, against Oregon and Stanford, when those two teams, which are very good teams, athletic teams, and top quality players, when they punch, this group of Santa Clara players, and you see it a lot under Herb Sendek, they're not thinking, oh, this is the end of us tonight. And so I think that's what you saw in both of those games, and what you've seen in a lot of games this year.
And we've already talked a little bit about just like we've had a lot of new faces, and they're still like you have a lot of confidence because you have experience coming in from these transfers, but they're still trying to figure out how to play with each other to an extent. And do you think it was actually helpful before going into this weekend that they had games like the Utah Tech, the Missouri, the Mississippi Valley States, like where those are lesser opponents, but it allowed you time to actually kind of gel a little bit more before you saw maybe some of these bigger opponents?
I think that's probably by design, right? So you have so many new faces, and I think most teams do that. Um, get a chance to get comfortable with players, and get comfortable with each other. Sure, they've been practicing for a while. Sure, they've had a couple of exhibition games, closed door. But to get into games where you're in live game action against a real opponent, the Utah Techs and St. Francis and that type of thing. So yeah, I think that's going to help any school to do that. And so Santa Clara probably benefited a little bit from that, getting a chance to acclimate. But by the way, this is a school that's ready to play whomever is on the schedule, and they're scheduling to try and get into the NCAA tournament. And it's not,
Yeah.
I mean, look at the schedule. The
Mhm.
non-conference schedule is as tough as I've seen it in years, and
Mhm.
that's the goal. So yeah, maybe one or two games, but then it's okay. Let's bring on Oregon, Stanford, Ohio State, New Mexico,
Yeah.
Yale, Duquesne, all of them, and that's a very tough non-conference schedule.
Right, and that's been one of and many people, and myself included, a lot of us pointed out just how tough the Santa Clara schedule is in the non-conference because it's especially once you got past those first couple of weeks, it was just kind of almost one right after the other of really tough quality opponents that you'd be hitting the road, playing them at home, and so you get them in a variety of venues as well. And every so because I feel like the Santa Clara teams of the last few years, it's not that this one is necessarily. I'm still trying to figure out because I don't think they're necessarily better than what we've seen in the last few years, but this team has a greater opportunity because of the schedule put together to get some of those key wins that maybe kept them out of the tournaments last year, or maybe 2 years ago with Jalen Williams or Pajemski. But now you have the schedule matches what the team is, and kind of like is that kind of like the way you're looking at it? Because obviously we don't know what the team's going to be yet, but
Right.
what's kind of the early read?
Yeah, it's early, right? So Jason Ludwig has a lot to do, and I dare say is in charge of the scheduling. So I talked to him about being in the multi-team event in Florida and looking at scheduled games, and he basically said we look at what it takes to get into the tournament, at an at-large level, because obviously the goal is to win conference, the goal is to win the conference tournament and get that automatic bid, but you have to schedule as if it's you're looking at to get in at an at-large, and so that's what he's been doing, and that's what they have. Been trying to do for the last several years under Herb Sendek. So I think unless if I'm not answering your question, just say, no, wait, Anthony, this is what I meant. But yeah, that's the goal. This is as deep a team as I've seen at Santa Clara under Coach Sendek. And I dare say he's got his hands full with trying to get all the talent on the floor and manage minutes and get the right combinations. And I think that's a lot of what the non-conference has been so far. Adama Alpha Ball has been getting better every game. And you saw it against Stanford, and you saw it against Oregon, and Christoph Tilley, and Johnny O'Neill from American
Yep.
University, who's come over, and he's getting better every game. So there's a lot of players, all the way down to the freshmen who've come in, and I think this is going to be a pretty special team. It is. It is a very
Yeah.
special team.
One of the returners we haven't actually talked about, we've mentioned a lot of names. We have not talked about Carlos Marshall Jr. yet. And I feel like you can't not talk about what this team has done to this point without mentioning his impact and what he's been able to bring. As one of the few returners, even though he obviously missed most of last year with an injury, we just kind of talked to like his leadership and what he has meant as kind of being almost one of the program bears, because he is one of the guys who has been here at least for a couple of years.
Right. He was around the team all of last year. He got in 3 games and then suffered a shoulder injury, which required surgery in January. So even though he had the surgery, he was around the team. And I didn't get a chance to see him play that much before he came to Santa Clara. So when he got out there the first couple of games this year, and we interviewed him for a halftime segment on one of our broadcasts on ESPN Plus, just so calm. He's from Memphis, and just real relaxed, and likes to laugh, and is one of those guys that's just confident. And he said over the weekend, he said, "This is the healthiest I've been in years, and I feel great." And the other guys feed off of that. I mean, just very calm, it's going to get done. And the combination of these players like Chef, and we talked about the others that had come in with all the experience, they feed off each other. Everything's going to be fine. We've got a fantastic coach and staff. We've got each other that we can rely on. We have experience mixed in with youth, and he's been fantastic. And I think people maybe were surprised at his start because they didn't get a chance to see him play much last year. But I'm here to tell you, don't be surprised at what you see from him. He's fantastic.
Yeah, I think I was maybe not completely surprised, but it was just how quickly was able to get off to some starts in those games. I think there were a couple of games as I was about ready to flip him on. It's like I looked up and he already had 10 points after like the first few minutes of the game. And I think that happened for a couple of straight games where I'm like, oh, he's already in double digits. So
Yeah, he
it
got off
was,
to really good starts, 20 plus in his first couple of games, and then maybe 14 points and 10 rebounds, and everybody's getting involved. Everybody's getting comfortable with how each other plays and the combinations that they're in throughout the game. The starting 5 probably won't be on the floor a ton of time because you've got Tyree Bryan coming off the bench, and you've got Caffaro coming off the bench, and then there's the wild cards of, is somebody in foul trouble, or is the defense showing something that maybe dictates a different lineup. So there's a lot of interchangeable parts and a lot of options for Herb and his staff, which kind of makes it exciting for me anyway to call.
right. It's because it does seem like, and Herb and I talked about this in an interview before the season, because he also agreed that like this is like his deepest team that he's had since being at Santa Clara. And I mean, it does seem like that there's just 10 deep on this team that can really like contribute in a real way. And just some of the guys that been looking at, we mentioned Caffaro, we've mentioned Tilley, we've mentioned a lot of these guys. When we mentioned them briefly, and I do want to kind of go back to Johnny O'Neill, because it feels like to me, it's like when he is on, like he gives them a wrinkle that they haven't had in a while, because he's that stretch 4 that if he starts knocking it down, that like it really makes this team seem a lot different.
Yeah, he's had glimpses of what he can do. I don't think he's fully hit his stride at Santa Clara,
Mm-hmm.
but I expect it to be soon. Now, that's just on the offensive side of things, right?
Yeah.
So he's still rebounding. He's still blocking shots, which is what he did very well at American University. I think I haven't looked at the numbers yet, but I'm pretty sure he leads Santa Clara in block shots right now. So it's just a matter of time before he is the Johnny O'Neill that was at American University doing such great things. So, yeah, I mean, we haven't really talked much about him, but I mean, you could, in the post-game interviews after the victories this year, Herb and I have talked about a team effort every time. And it's not just Adama Alpha Ball. It's not just Christoph Tilley. It's the Ensmingers, the Johnny O'Neills, the Chefs, Jalen Benjamins, the Christian Hammonds, who's a freshman. everybody, and I'm missing some names there, but I think you get my point.
Yeah.
It's a team effort, and so they're all helping each other, and it's been working pretty well so far.
So what has been as this team has gotten better, as this team has two straight 20-win seasons, they've been the 3 seed in the WCC tournament each of the last 2 years. What's been kind of like the energy level or the vibe on campus with some of the other people you're talking to or get a chance to speak with about the excitement that this team is starting to bring to Santa Clara?
Tons of excitement from boosters I've talked to. Renee Baumgartner, the athletic director, has done a fantastic job. There are new buildings on campus. It's not just around the basketball program that's built the
Mm-hmm.
excitement. Santa Clara baseball, Santa Clara soccer, men's and women's, golf, you name it. I mean, there's a buzz about the athletics at Santa Clara right now, and basketball is at the forefront of that. It's exciting. I think this is my 17th year. It's exciting to be able to say, oh, look, Jalen Williams was here 2 years ago, and now he's runner-up rookie of the year, and now he's the starting lineup for the Thunder. And oh, Brandon Pajimski comes back and works out before the Warrior season started, and you run into him at a soccer game. And it is kind of cool to see these guys who haven't changed, and they're still very proud of Santa Clara, and they're around talking to their former classmates. Yeah, the vibe is really good. And I think I asked a really dumb question, which if you've listened to any of my interviews, you know is not uncommon. To Herb, I said, so this program's on a different level, isn't it? And he looked at me, because of course it is. Of course the
Mm-hmm.
program's on a different level over the last handful of years.
Yeah.
And his staff and he and Renee in the athletic department and everyone associated with athletics at Santa Clara has had a hand in this buzz. So it is very exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this team can go. I've long said that Santa Clara is probably like the sleeping giant of the WCC because of the resources and what Santa Clara has the potential to do. We know in decades past that has been the case, and now it looks like Santa Clara is starting to kind of bring some of that back and be in the mix because of this. They've set themselves up to be in the mix, to pick up a few more wins, be in that conversation for an at-large once we roll around to Selection Sunday. So I'm just going to wrap this up real quick. So Anthony, thanks for hopping on. Thanks for chatting about Santa Clara basketball. I mean, the weekend, even if it ended on a sour note, was got a good win against Oregon. This team is looking good, and there's plenty of opportunities left on the schedule before we get to conference in only a little more than a month. It's kind of scary to think that we're only a month away from conference play.
Well, if I know you're following the team closely, if you any of your viewers are kind of on the fence about, should I check out Santa Clara? Should I go see them play? Get off the fence. You should, and
Get off the fence.
something special's happening.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for hopping on, and I'll catch you down the road.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it.